هذا ليس مطعماً رخيصاً. هذا مكان للناس المحترمين.
The glass chandeliers burned too brightly, the kind of light that made people's diamonds glitter harder and their teeth whiter. Layla adjusted the tray balanced on her palm, the muscles in her wrist screaming from a double shift. She pasted on the practiced smile that management demanded, the one that showed deference without weakness, and wove through the crowded dining room of Le Chandelier, one of Manhattan's sanctuaries for the rich who wanted to be seen. Table 12, Marco, the head waiter whispered as he passed her, his Italian accent tight with urgency. VIPs. Don't drop a crumb. Layla nodded, her heart sinking. VIPs meant the tables where mistakes weren't forgiven, where even water refills became a test of competence. She tugged at the sleeves of her black uniform shirt, straightened her apron, and forced her breathing into a rhythm. When she reached the corner banquette, she knew immediately why Marco had been nervous. The men at the table weren't just rich. They radiated ownership. Suits that cost more than her rent, watches that gleamed like tiny planets on their wrists. Their laughter cut the room like blades. At the center sat Karim Al-Farouk. She recognized him instantly. How could she not? His face had appeared in glossy magazines, articles about philanthropy, technology, and Middle Eastern oil ventures. A man whose wealth seemed untouchable. He was broad-shouldered, impeccably groomed, his beard trimmed with ruthless precision. But it wasn't his fame that made Layla's stomach twist. It was the accent, the cadence of his voice. Arabic threaded through his English like veins of fire in marble. She steadied the tray and set down a crystal glass of Bordeaux in front of him. "Your wine, sir." Karim didn't look up. He continued his story in Arabic, assuming she was invisible, and then I told him, "A man who cannot control his own household has no business negotiating a billion-dollar contract. Weakness is shameful. Shameful." The men around him chuckled, nodding in agreement. Layla's throat tightened. She turned to leave when his voice snapped like a whip. "Ya bint al-kalb," he barked, still in Arabic. "Daughter of a dog. Do you not know how to pour properly? Are your hands shaking because you've never touched real wine before? Or do you serve like this for tips, cheap and careless?" The insult slammed into her chest. For a second, she couldn't breathe. The tray trembled in her hand. He thought she didn't understand. Layla felt the old instinct rising, the reflex to stay silent, to swallow humiliation like medicine, to pretend she hadn't heard. That was survival, but another voice inside her, the one she had buried under years of exile and exhaustion, flared to life. Not tonight. She placed the tray firmly on the side table, turned back to him, and met his eyes. Her voice came out steady, sharp, in flawless Arabic. إذا كنت تريد أن تتحدث عن فكن رجلا وقله بوجهي. لست أعظم مني. If you want to speak about me, be a man and say it to my face. You are no greater than I am. The entire table froze. Glasses hung halfway to lips. Forks hovered above plates. Karim's head snapped up. His dark eyes widened, a flicker of surprise cracking his mask of superiority. He studied her as though she had shapeshifted in front of him. "You speak Arabic," he said, this time in English, his tone low, dangerous. Layla felt every gaze in the room sliding toward them. Silence spread like spilled wine. Even Marco lingered near the service station, his mouth slightly open. "Yes," she said, her accent deliberate, precise. Fluently, for a moment neither of them moved. It was as though the chandelier light dimmed, leaving only the two of them locked in an invisible battlefield. Then Karim leaned back in his seat, a slow smile unfurling across his lips. "Interesting." He switched back to Arabic. "Very interesting. You hide behind this uniform, but there is fire in you. Tell me, what's your name?" Layla's fingers curled into fists at her side. She wanted to lie, to vanish into the anonymity she had built so carefully. But another part of her, raw, trembling, wanted to reclaim her name, to stop hiding. "Layla," she said finally. The name hung in the air like a weapon unsheathed. Karim's smile deepened. He repeated it slowly, savoring it. "Layla." Then to his companions he said in English, "The waitress has teeth." The men laughed uneasily, unsure whether to join his amusement or recoil from the tension crackling between them. Layla felt the heat in her cheeks but refused to look away. "Enjoy your evening?" she said curtly, turning on her heel. She could feel his gaze burning into her back as she walked away. Every step felt like defiance. Behind the service counter, Marco rushed over, eyes wide. What the hell was that? Do you know who that man is? Yes, Layla said quietly, pouring water into a carafe to steady her hands. Then why? Because he insulted me, she snapped, harsher than intended. Then softer, almost to herself. Because he thought I wouldn't understand. Marco stared, then shook his head in disbelief. Just be careful. These people, they don't forgive. She didn't answer. Layla returned to her other tables, her body on autopilot, but her mind kept replaying the moment, the look in Kareem's eyes when she answered back. Not just surprise, recognition. Recognition was dangerous. When the dinner rush finally thinned, she stood alone in the break room, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders. Her reflection in the cracked mirror showed more than exhaustion. It showed something she hadn't seen in years, defiance alive again in her eyes. But beneath it, another truth pulsed. Danger had found her, and this time, she hadn't hidden. The subway's rumble carried Layla home like a tired lullaby. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering across the faces of passengers lost in their own exhaustion. Her reflection in the window stared back at her, dark eyes, faint lines etched too early around her mouth, her hair pinned back too tightly. She closed her eyes. The moment in the restaurant still throbbed inside her chest like a bruise. Kareem's insult, the sound of Arabic spilling from his tongue like poison, had broken open a door she kept locked, and when she answered back, something else had slipped out too. Memory. It rose unbidden, filling the space around her. She was 10 years old again, standing barefoot on the cool tiles of her father's courtyard in Damascus. Jasmine vines climbed the walls, filling the air with sweetness. The house was large, dignified, built on generations of trade and reputation. Her father, Mahmoud, had always said, "A family name is stronger than gold." She had believed him then. "Baba, come see," she had called, holding up her schoolwork. Perfect scores, neat handwriting. He had laughed, lifting her into the air, his beard brushing her cheek. "My Layla, sharper than the men in Parliament. One day you'll make me prouder than all the sons I never had." Her mother had smiled faintly in the background, arranging fruit in a bowl, always careful not to contradict him. Layla pressed her forehead against the subway glass now, fighting the sting of tears. That house, that courtyard, gone. Her father's voice, gone. What remained was betrayal. It had begun subtly. Whispers in the street. A cousin asking strange questions, the weight of secrets pressing against the walls. Her family had been comfortable, maybe too comfortable, while the country fractured. Some relatives sided with power, others whispered rebellion. Layla had been 15 when she overheard her uncle arguing with her father in the study. "You're too loud, Mahmoud. Too principled. They are watching you." "And what do you suggest?" her father had snapped. "That I kneel like you? That I sell my own name?" Her uncle's voice had dropped, dangerous. Better a traitor than a martyr with a widowed wife and children scattered like ash. The door had creaked. Layla had tried to sneak away, but her uncle's eyes had caught hers. Cold, calculating. Later, when men with guns came in the night, it was no mystery who had spoken. The memory came in shards, always too sharp to hold. The front door splintering. Her father shouting. Her mother's screams muffled by hands. The heat of a soldier's grip on her arm as she tried to shield Adam's baby cradle. "Run, Layla," her father had roared. "Take him and run," she had. Barefoot, heart cracking, carrying her infant brother. No, her son, she corrected herself. Adam. Not her brother. Her son. The subway screeched to a halt, dragging her back into the present. She exhaled shakily, clutching her bag tighter. Adam's picture peeked from her wallet. 6 years old now, missing teeth, eyes too wide and innocent for the world she carried on her shoulders. Their apartment in Queens was small, walls thin enough to hear neighbors arguing through the night, but it was safe. "Safe enough, Mom?" Adam's voice met her as she unlocked the door. He padded out in pajamas, hair a messy halo, clutching his stuffed lion. "You're supposed to be asleep," she said gently, setting her bag down. "I waited for you." He frowned. "You look sad." She knelt, pulling him close. His warmth, his little arms around her neck, anchored her to the now. "I'm just tired, Habibi. Go back to bed." He studied her, too perceptive for his age. "Did someone hurt your feelings?" Layla froze. For a second, Kareem's voice thundered in her head. Ya bint al-kalb. She forced a smile. No one can hurt me as long as I have you. When Adam was tucked in again, she sat by the kitchen window staring at the skyline. Manhattan glittered like a jeweled lie. The city promised reinvention, but ghosts followed you across oceans. She remembered the refugee camp in Turkey, canvas tents flapping in dust-laden wind, long lines for bread, the constant fear of being forgotten by the world. She remembered clutching Adam as fevers racked his tiny body, bargaining with God for medicine she couldn't afford. She remembered the betrayal more than anything. Her uncle, the same one who had warned her father, later appearing in polished suits in government offices. He had survived by selling them out. Her father's blood was the price of his comfort. The insult tonight had been more than words. It had been a reminder. Men like Kareem, men with money and arrogance, lived as though they owned the right to judge and to destroy. And she had been invisible. Until she wasn't, her phone buzzed. A message from Marco. Are you okay? That guy was scary tonight. Don't poke the bear. Layla stared at the screen, thumbs hovering. Then she typed, I've been running from bears my whole life. And deleted it. Too dramatic. Too revealing. She left the message unanswered. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, the nightmares returned. She was back in Damascus, fire streaking the night sky. Adam wailing in her arms, soldiers shouting. She stumbled through alleys, smoke burning her lungs. At the end of the street, her uncle's silhouette appeared. She ran toward him, desperate. Help us, she cried. He looked at her, then past her, then raised his hand. Men stepped forward, blocking her path. She jolted awake, gasping, sweat soaking her sheets. The faint hum of traffic reassured her. New York, not Damascus. Adam stirred in the next room, murmuring in his sleep. Layla pressed her palms over her face. The past was never past. One word in Arabic and the dam burst. Morning light broke through the blinds. Adam clambered into bed with her, giggling, insisting she get up. She let him, grateful for his laughter. He didn't know the weight she carried. He didn't need to. As she dressed for another shift, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes, jaw tight. She whispered in Arabic, almost without realizing, La nabka samita. I will not stay silent. The words startled her. They didn't sound like resignation. They sounded like a vow. On the way to school, Adam skipped beside her, chattering about spelling tests and dinosaurs. She nodded, smiling when she could, but her mind was elsewhere. Kareem's face flashed before her again, the smirk, the sudden interest when she revealed herself. He was dangerous, yes, but he had also seen her, recognized her fire. That recognition scared her more than his insult, because it meant the past was closer than she thought. The restaurant smelled of bleach and stale wine at closing time. Chairs were stacked on tables, floors freshly mopped, the glittering chandeliers dimmed to shadows. Layla untied her apron, folded it with mechanical precision, and stuffed it into her locker. Her body ached, but her mind buzzed with restless energy. She hadn't shaken the encounter. Kareem's voice, his sharp Arabic insult, the look of surprise when she fired back. She had replayed it all day. The clash of pride and humiliation still hot in her veins. The kitchen door creaked. A figure stepped through the hallway, the sound of polished shoes clicking against tile. Layla's stomach tightened. Kareem. He looked out of place without the buffer of his entourage. No laughter, no expensive cigar smoke, just his broad frame in a dark coat, his presence filling the empty space like a storm cloud. You're still here, he said in English, his tone smooth, almost conversational. Layla stiffened. I'm leaving. He raised his hand slightly as if to calm. No need to be afraid. I came to apologize. Her laugh escaped sharp and bitter. Men like you don't apologize. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Respect? Maybe not often. But last night, I was rude, unfair. You insulted me, she said bluntly. Yes. He nodded, unflinching. And you surprised me. The silence stretched heavy. Layla reached for her bag, ready to push past him. But then his next words froze her. I know your name. Her hand stilled on the strap. Excuse me? Layla Mahmoud. He said it in Arabic, her father's name wrapped in his accent like smoke. From Damascus. Am I wrong? Her breath caught in her throat. Every nerve screamed to deny it, to protect Adam, to vanish. Instead, she forced calm. You must be mistaken, he smiled faintly. I rarely am. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your father was a man of principle. Too much principle, perhaps. I respected that. Layla's heart pounded. Respect. That was the word men used when they wanted to bury the truth. You knew my father? I knew of him. Business circles, political whispers. He was a lion in a den of jackals. And he paid the price. Layla's fists clenched. She hated how his words tugged at memories she had tried to bury. The courtyard, her father's laughter, the night of betrayal. Why are you telling me this? She demanded. Because, Kareem said smoothly, I believe we can help each other. He gestured toward the empty dining room as if it were his private stage. I admire strength. Last night you showed me yours. Most women in your position would have bowed, apologized, begged to keep their job. You did not, Layla's voice sharpened. If you're here to flatter me, I'm here to offer you a chance, he interrupted. The way he said it, measured, deliberate, made her skin prickle. I have resources, Kareem continued. Connections, influence, you're a mother, yes? Her blood chilled. Leave my son out of this. I intend no harm, he said quickly. On the contrary, I could arrange schooling for him. Private, the best New York can offer. Opportunities you could never afford on a waitress's salary. Layla's pulse thundered. Adam. His face flashed in her mind. Wide eyes, missing teeth. The way he begged for books about dinosaurs. The thought of him in a real classroom, safe and thriving, pierced her heart with longing. And in exchange, she whispered. Kareem's smile was slow, practiced. Loyalty, discretion, small favors from time to time. Nothing illegal, of course, just helpful gestures, introductions, information. It was a lie, she could taste it. Nothing about this man was harmless. His favors would come at a cost she couldn't imagine. You want me to spy for you? He chuckled. Such an ugly word. Think of it as partnership. Layla shook her head, taking a step back. I don't trust you. You don't have to. Trust is for children and poets. What I offer is necessity. His eyes gleamed. You've survived worse. You know what it means to sacrifice. Tell me, Layla, would you rather cling to pride and let your boy scrape by, or take my hand and give him a future? The words hit her like blows. Pride. Boy. Future. She remembered Damascus, the night she ran. Adam burning with fever in the refugee camp. The endless jobs she worked to keep a roof over their heads. Every sacrifice had been for him, and now here was a door cracked open. Behind it, possibility, education, safety, but behind it too, the shadow of a man like Kareem. Her voice came low, shaking. You think money gives you the right to buy people's lives. To play God, he tilted his head. Not God. Just a man who understands power. You should understand it too. You were born to it, anger flared. I was born to a family destroyed by men like you. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in, his breath warm, words intimate. Then perhaps it's time to stop being a victim. Join the ones who destroy instead of the ones destroyed. Layla's throat closed. For a moment, the temptation was real, sharp as glass. Then Adam's voice echoed in her mind. Did someone hurt your feelings, Mama? She stepped back, spine rigid. I need time to think. Kareem smiled as if expecting the answer. Of course. Take all the time you need. But remember, doors like this don't stay open forever. He slipped a business card from his coat pocket and set it on the counter. Heavy cardstock embossed with gold. Just his name, a phone number, nothing more. Good night, Layla, he said softly, switching to Arabic for the final word. Ahlan. Welcome. Then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of cologne and danger. Layla stood frozen, staring at the card. Her reflection in the polished surface looked back at her, fractured, uncertain. She thought of Adam asleep in their tiny apartment, dreaming innocent dreams. She thought of the ghosts of Damascus, the uncle who betrayed them, the soldiers who tore her family apart. She thought of the word Kareem had left hanging in the air, welcome as though she were stepping into a new world. Her fingers hovered over the card, trembling. For Adam, a voice whispered inside her. At what cost? Another answered. She shoved the card into her bag and turned off the lights. The restaurant went dark, but the deal lingered in the shadows, alive, waiting. The library smelled of dust and old paper, a quiet world far from the noise of the city. Layla sat at one of the computer terminals. her fingers hovering over the keyboard, Kareem's business card burning a hole in her bag. She had told herself she wouldn't search. That knowing would only invite more danger, but the need gnawed at her. He had spoken her father's name with too much ease. He had known too much, so she typed, Kareem Al-Farouk Syria Investment Networks. Links flooded the screen, press releases, op-eds, puff pieces about humanitarian funding and infrastructure rebuilding. She clicked deeper. An old report buried under financial jargon. Silent investors, shell companies, and there it was, a name she hadn't seen in years, her uncle's. Layla's chest tightened, bile rising in her throat. The paper trail connected Kareem directly to her uncle's ventures during the war years. Those same ventures that had sold out her father's principles, that had turned neighbors into informants, that had broken their family. She shoved her chair back, breathing hard. The library suddenly felt suffocating. The fluorescent lights too sharp, it wasn't coincidence. Kareem hadn't just stumbled into her life. He was tangled in the very betrayal that had destroyed it. That night, she tucked Adam into bed and kissed his forehead longer than usual. She lingered, her heart aching with both love and fury. When the apartment was quiet, she pulled Kareem's card from her bag and stared at it. Her reflection wavered in the gold embossing. She wanted to tear it in half. Burn it, but she didn't, because rage had a shape now, a face, and because another truth haunted her. Adam needed more than anger could give. The next evening, the restaurant buzzed again with its theater of wealth. Layla tried to keep her head down, but she knew it the moment she stepped onto the floor. He was there. Kareem sat at the same corner banquette, alone this time. His eyes found her instantly, a predator spotting prey. He raised his glass in greeting. Against her better judgment, she approached. "Why are you here again?" she asked under her breath as she set down a basket of bread. "To see you," he said simply. Her pulse quickened. "I read about you," she whispered. "The networks, the investments. You were with them." He didn't look surprised. "So you know. You helped them betray my father." Her voice cracked, low but sharp. "You destroyed my family." Kareem leaned forward, his tone calm, almost gentle. "Your father destroyed himself. He refused to bend. Men like that are noble and doomed." Tears burned her eyes, but she forced them back. "You profited from his blood." "Yes." He didn't flinch. "And so did your uncle. Ask yourself, Layla, who survived? Who provided for their families?" "Not your father." The cruelty in his honesty cut deeper than any denial. Later, after her shift ended, Kareem was waiting outside the restaurant. The night air was damp, the city humming with neon and sirens. "Walk with me," he said, not a request. Layla considered turning, running, but his presence was magnetic, terrifyingly persuasive. Against reason, she fell into step beside him. They walked down a quiet street, his stride confident, hers wary. "You think I am your enemy?" Kareem said, hands clasped behind his back. "Perhaps. But I am also a mirror. I survived because I understood power. You are surviving the same way, working, enduring indignity, swallowing insults. The difference is you pretend it gives you dignity. I don't pretend," she snapped. He stopped abruptly, turning to face her. They were under a street lamp, its glow casting sharp shadows across his face. "You think I insulted you that night, but I was testing you, and you passed. That fire, your father had it. It killed him. But if you learned to wield it differently, it could save you." His gaze was too intense, too close. Layla took a step back, but he matched it. "Let me help you," he murmured. "You and your son." The way he said son made her blood run cold, as if Adam were already caught in his grasp. "You're a liar," she said, voice trembling. "Perhaps." His smile was slow, unsettling. But sometimes lies build futures better than truth. She didn't remember how it happened, how his hand brushed her arm, how the world tilted for one reckless second. Her body stiffened, breath caught. It wasn't a touch of affection. It was possession. A warning of the trap waiting to spring. "Don't," she whispered, yanking her arm free. His voice dropped, low and intimate. "One day you'll understand that survival is never clean. Pride doesn't feed a child. Power does." For a moment she felt cornered, the way she had on the night soldiers stormed their home. The betrayal of her uncle's eyes, the grip of a stranger's hand, it all came rushing back. Collapsing time. But beneath the fear, something else ignited. Rage. "You may have survived," she hissed, "but you'll never have my dignity." Kareem studied her, expression unreadable. Then he inclined his head slightly, almost like a bow. "We'll see." Layla stumbled back into her apartment later, heart hammering, the city's noise muted behind her. She locked the door, pressed her forehead against the wood, and let the tears come. Adam's soft snores drifted from his room, steady and innocent. She sank to the floor, clutching her knees, torn between fury and despair. The betrayal of her past was alive again, woven into her present. Kareem wasn't just another arrogant man. He was the echo of every wound, every injustice that had marked her life. And he wasn't finished with her. The rain had turned the city streets into mirrors. Layla walked fast, hood up, clutching Adam's hand as they darted from the subway to their apartment building. He chattered about dinosaurs, oblivious to the shadows following them, but Layla felt it. Ever since Kareem's hand had grazed her arm, ever since his eyes had stripped away her defenses, she had felt hunted. His name was a drumbeat inside her skull, pounding through every hour of her day. That night, after Adam was asleep, she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her tired face. The card Kareem had left burned in her pocket. She pulled it out, hesitated, then typed his name again into the search bar. But this time she didn't stop at the glossy headlines. She dug deeper. Articles hidden beneath layers of SEO gloss, leaked documents on obscure watchdog sites, testimonies buried in refugee forums, and then she found it. A report from a non-governmental organization, a PDF stamped confidential that had somehow leaked. It outlined financial flows tied to Kareem's companies, charities funneling money into construction projects that didn't exist, funds transferred offshore, and worse, names, women, children. She scrolled, pulse hammering, nausea rising, descriptions of transportation networks, of human capital transfers. The words were sanitized, but the meaning wasn't. Human trafficking. Her stomach lurched. She clapped a hand over her mouth to keep from crying out and waking Adam. Kareem wasn't just a businessman. He was a predator dressed in philanthropy. The next day at the restaurant, she moved like a ghost, serving tables automatically, her mind replaying what she had read. Marco cornered her by the service station. "You look sick. You okay?" "I'm fine," she lied, but she wasn't. Every smile from a customer, every polite thank you, felt like poison when she knew monsters like Kareem could sit in these same chairs, laughing about wine while entire families bled in the shadows of their wealth. When Kareem arrived that evening, she didn't flinch. He swept into the restaurant with his usual entourage, but his eyes found her immediately. That smile, that chilling, private smile, spread across his face. She set down plates, refilled glasses, her hands steady but her heart seething. When she leaned over to place a dish, he whispered, "You're angry tonight. It suits you." She straightened sharply, jaw tight. "I know what you are," she murmured. His eyebrow arched, intrigued. "Do you?" "I know about the trafficking, the money, the blood behind your suits." For the first time, he didn't smile. His expression froze, eyes narrowing, voice dropping to a razor's edge. "Careful," he said. Her breath caught, but she didn't back down. "You hide behind charity dinners and headlines. But I see you, and one day so will everyone else." Kareem leaned back, regaining his composure. Slowly, deliberately, his lips curved again. "That fire will either destroy you, Layla, or make you mine." That night she couldn't sleep. She sat by Adam's bed watching him dream, his little chest rising and falling. His stuffed lion lay tucked under his arm. She thought about the report, about the girls' names listed like inventory. She thought about Kareem's smirk, his arrogance, his certainty that the world was his to control. Fear pressed heavy on her chest. Fear of his power, his reach, his knowledge of her past. But beneath it, something else churned. Rage sharpened into clarity. If she did nothing, Adam would inherit this world. A world where men like Kareem devoured families and called it business. She touched Adam's hair gently, her voice breaking into a whisper. "I won't let him take anything more from us. Not you, not me. Not ever again." 2 days later, Layla returned to the library. Her hands shook as she plugged a flash drive into the public computer. She downloaded the trafficking report, copied articles, archived testimonies. Each click felt like defiance, a refusal to stay powerless. But as she left, she noticed a man in a gray suit at the corner of the block. He wasn't reading his phone. He was watching her, her pace quickened, heart thudding. She ducked into a bodega, waited by the refrigerators until the man passed. She knew then. Karim already suspected. That evening, she called her childhood friend Rana, one of the only connections she still had from Syria, now living in New Jersey. Her voice shook as she spoke into the phone. "I found something about him." "About Karim, Layla," Rana warned, panic in her tone. "Don't get involved. Men like that, you don't fight them. You disappear." "I've disappeared enough," Layla said. "My whole life I've been running. I'm done." Rana fell silent for a long moment, then promised me, "Be careful." For Adam, Layla repeated. That night Karim texted her, "You have fire. Fire needs fuel. Let me give it to you." She deleted the message, but her hands trembled. He wasn't just circling her, he was daring her. Layla sat at the kitchen table staring at the pile of bills, Adam's school notices, the cracked paint on the walls. She felt the weight of her exhaustion, of years of survival, pressing down on her shoulders. And then she felt something else rise, steady and cold, resolve. She whispered it aloud, as if testing the sound of it. No more hiding. Her reflection in the darkened window stared back, tired, scarred, but alive. Alive with purpose. By dawn, her decision was made. She would not let Karim own her silence the way her uncle had owned her father's. She would not let Adam grow up learning that survival meant submission. She would fight. Not just for herself, for every ghost of Damascus, for every name on that report, for her son, who deserved a world without predators like Karim at the top. Layla clenched her fists and breathed deep. Fear still lived in her chest, but now it had a companion, fire. The breaking point wasn't just her lowest moment. It was the moment she chose to rise. The first time Layla met the journalist, it was in the back booth of a rundown diner in Queens, the kind of place where the coffee tasted like rust and the lights buzzed overhead. She kept her hood up, her eyes darting to the door every time it opened. "Layla?" The woman slid into the booth across from her. She was older than Layla expected, mid-40s maybe, hair pulled back, face lined with fatigue and fight. Her recorder sat discreetly on the table, half hidden by a napkin dispenser. "Name's Julia Reyes," she said. "Investigative desk, the Ledger. Your friend Rana reached out. She said you had something." Layla's fingers clenched around her coffee mug. She could still hear Karim's voice in her head. "Careful." Julia leaned forward, voice low, steady. "Listen, I've been digging into Al-Farouk for years. If you've got proof, I'll help you. But if you don't, this gets dangerous fast, for both of us." Layla pulled the flash drive from her pocket, the plastic warm from her grip. She slid it across the table like contraband. "Start with this," Julia's eyebrows lifted. "What's on it?" "The truth," Layla whispered. "But not all of it. Not yet." The duality of her life became unbearable after that. By day, she tied her hair back and carried trays of champagne to laughing men in $1,000 suits. She smiled at regulars who tipped well, who asked about Adam, who never guessed she was hiding evidence of international crimes in her sock drawer. By night, she was someone else entirely. She slipped into libraries, borrowed Rana's printer, met Julia in subway stations where the screech of trains drowned their whispers. One night, Julia showed her a series of grainy photos, cargo containers being loaded at a dock. "We believe Karim uses these routes," she said. "He launders people the same way he launders money. I need someone close to him, someone he talks to who can get us confirmation." Layla felt her stomach drop. "You want me to get close to him?" Julia's eyes softened. "I know what I'm asking, but this is bigger than either of us. We bring him down, we don't just free you, we free hundreds." Layla thought of Adam asleep at home, clutching his lion. Her voice trembled. "If I do this and he finds out," Julia cut her off gently, "then we'll protect you. But I won't lie, it's a risk." The risk began that same week. Karim had started requesting her section at the restaurant. He liked her to pour his wine, to lean in close enough that his cologne filled her lungs. Each word he spoke felt like a test. "You've been quiet," he murmured one evening. She forced a smile. "I've been tired." "Double shifts," he chuckled. "Work is a leash, Layla. One day I'll show you what it's like to walk free." She caught the exchange in her apron pocket. the tiny recorder Julia had given her, the red light blinking faintly against the fabric. Every word he spoke was being captured. Every threat, every slip of arrogance. Later, in the bathroom stall, she pressed the recorder to her chest, her breath coming fast. She hated herself for trembling, for feeling like the soldier's hands were on her again, pinning her down, making her silent. But then she thought of Julia's words, "We free hundreds," and steadied herself. Balancing the dual life nearly broke her. One afternoon, she sat in the audience at Adam's school play. The cheap paper program crumpled in her sweaty hands. He stood on stage, dressed as a tree, waving his cardboard branches. His eyes searched the crowd until they found her. His grin lit up the room. She clapped, tears burning her eyes, her heart swelling with pride. And then her phone buzzed. A message from Julia. "Meet me. Urgent." Layla forced herself to keep clapping, smiling for Adam until the curtain fell. But as soon as he ran into her arms, she was already calculating excuses. How to leave him with Rana for the night. How to explain another shift. Adam pouted. "You're always working, Mama." The word stabbed deeper than any threat Kareem had made. She kissed his hair, whispering, "One day, Habibi, I'll tell you what I was working for." The clandestine meetings grew more dangerous. Julia introduced her to someone new, a district attorney named Marcus Patel. His suit was too neat for subway tunnels, his eyes sharp but kind. "I need chain of custody," he told Layla, his voice brisk, professional. "If we're going to make charges stick, recordings need dates, times, witnesses where possible. Otherwise, his lawyers will shred us in court." Layla swallowed hard. "You're asking me to gather evidence like I'm a cop." "No," Marcus corrected. "I'm asking you to be brave. Braver than anyone has the right to ask. But it has to be you because you're the only one he lets this close." She laughed bitterly. "Close? He doesn't let me close. He corners me, owns the room whenever I'm in it." Marcus nodded slowly. "And that's why his arrogance will undo him. He thinks you're powerless. Use that." The following week, Kareem lingered at the restaurant long after closing, insisting she bring him one last drink. The others had left. The manager was counting cash in the office. Layla's heart pounded as she poured whiskey into his glass, the recorder pinned inside her apron. "You shouldn't be working here," Kareem said, swirling the amber liquid. "You should be with me. You'd never worry about money again." "And the cost?" she asked softly. He smirked. "Everything has a cost. Dignity is cheap compared to survival." She froze. The words, the same words she had thrown at him weeks ago, came back sharpened. He leaned in closer. "I could own you, Layla, but I'd rather you chose to belong to me." Her stomach turned, but she forced herself to smile faintly, to play along just long enough. "Maybe one day," she whispered. Inside her apron, the recorder blinked. That night she handed Julia the file with shaking hands. "He's escalating," she whispered. "If he suspects me," Julia clasped her hands. "Then we move faster," Marcus agreed. "We're building a case, Layla. You're not alone in this anymore. I promise you." But promises felt thin against the shadow Kareem cast. 2 nights later, Layla dreamed of Damascus. She dreamed of soldiers kicking in their door, of her uncle's eyes turning away, of her father's voice fading. She woke with tears on her cheeks, Adam murmuring in his sleep beside her. She held him tight, whispering to herself, This is why I fight." For the first time since Kareem had re-entered her life, the fear didn't suffocate her. It sharpened her. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was building a case, a weapon, a future. The courtroom was colder than Layla expected. Not the temperature, the atmosphere. Polished oak benches, flags standing tall, the seal of justice carved into the wall. But beneath it all was theater, power, spectacle. Kareem entered like royalty, flanked by his lawyers in tailored suits. His cufflinks gleamed under the fluorescent lights. He didn't glance at her, but she felt the weight of his presence settle over the room like a storm cloud. Layla sat at the plaintiff's table beside Marcus Patel. Her palms were damp against the smooth surface. Her pulse a drumbeat across the aisle. Kareem's lead attorney, Vivian Cross, smiled, sharp as broken glass. A woman in her 50s, hair lacquered into place, voice as precise as a scalpel. "Remember," Marcus whispered. "Stay calm. Truth is our weapon." Layla nodded, but her stomach twisted. Truth hadn't saved her father. Truth hadn't fed Adam. The opening statements cut like blades. Vivian rose first, her heels clicking against the marble. She faced the jury with practiced poise. "My client," she began, gesturing elegantly toward Kareem, "is a respected philanthropist, a man who has rebuilt communities, funded hospitals, lifted families out of poverty, and now he is being targeted by a woman desperate for money, grasping for relevance and willing to invent the most outrageous lies to destroy his reputation." Her voice sharpened. "Ask yourselves, why would a waitress with no background, no resources suddenly accuse a man of such standing? The answer is simple. She saw an opportunity. She saw dollar signs." The jury shifted, some frowning, some skeptical. Layla's throat burned. She wanted to shout, "I never wanted his money." But Marcus placed a steady hand on her arm. Wait. When it was Marcus's turn, he stood without theatrics. His voice was measured, calm. "This is not a case of ambition. This is a case of survival. My client, Layla Haddad, fled war with nothing but her child. She built a life here, quietly, honorably, until the man who once profited from her family's suffering found her again. We will show you evidence, financial records, recordings, testimonies, that reveal not only fraud but the darkest of crimes, human trafficking. And you will see," Marcus concluded, his gaze steady on the jury, "that the only greed in this room is on the other side." The days blurred into legal skirmishes. Documents were paraded, witnesses questioned, objections shouted like gunfire. But the moment everyone waited for came when Layla was called to the stand. She walked slowly, knees weak, the eyes of the jury heavy on her. Adam sat in the gallery beside Rana, his small body dwarfed by the bench. His eyes locked on her, wide and trusting. She swore the oath, her voice barely above a whisper, then sat. Marcus began gently. "Layla, can you tell the court about your background?" Her story spilled out in fragments. Damascus, her father's principles, the betrayal, the escape. She felt stripped bare, every trauma summoned into the open. But she held her head high, speaking not just for herself but for the ghosts she carried. When Marcus asked about Kareem, her voice hardened. "He tried to buy me. Then he tried to own me. When I resisted, he threatened me." Marcus nodded. "And why come forward now?" She turned toward the jury, her eyes glistening. "Because I have a son, and I will not let him grow up in a world where men like this believe they can buy silence with fear." A hush swept the room. Then came Vivian. She approached like a predator, papers in hand, heels echoing in deliberate rhythm. "Ms. Haddad," she began smoothly, "you've been through a lot. War, loss, displacement. That must have been very traumatic." Layla's jaw tightened. "Yes," Vivian's smile sharpened. "And trauma, of course, can distort memory. Make people believe things happened that didn't. Isn't that true?" "No," Layla shot back. Vivian lifted a paper. "Is it also true that you owe several months of back rent? That you've struggled financially since arriving here?" "Yes," Layla admitted cautiously. "So," Vivian purred, turning to the jury, "you had motive. You needed money, and suddenly, conveniently, you accuse a millionaire of crime so heinous the media can't resist. You become the center of attention. A tragic heroine." Layla's heart pounded. She could see some jurors shifting uncomfortably. Doubt. That's what Vivian wanted. Vivian pressed harder. "You claim Mr. Al-Farouk threatened you. Yet here you are, alive, unscathed, still working at the same restaurant. Doesn't that seem inconsistent?" Layla's voice cracked, anger surging. "Do you think threats always leave bruises you can see?" Vivian tilted her head, unflinching. "Or do they only appear when it benefits your story?" Tears burned Layla's eyes, but she refused to look away. "He is not a benefactor. He is a predator. And if you can't see that, then you've chosen not to." The judge banged the gavel. "Order." Vivian stepped back, satisfied with the seeds of doubt she had sown. During recess, Layla collapsed onto the bench outside the courtroom, her hands shaking. Marcus crouched in front of her. "You did well. Don't let her rattle you." "She made me sound like I'm crazy, like I made everything up." Marcus's gaze softened. "They saw your strength. They saw your pain. That matters more than her performance." She glanced toward the gallery where Adam sat with Rana, nibbling on a sandwich. He waved shyly. Her chest tightened. "For him," she whispered. "For him," Marcus echoed. Back in the courtroom, the momentum shifted. Julia Reyes took the stand, presenting her investigative work. tying Kareem's shell companies to trafficking routes. Photos, shipping records, testimonies scrolled across the projector. Kareem's expression never changed. He sat serene, hands folded as though the entire trial were a minor inconvenience. But when Layla looked at the jury, she saw their faces change. Shock, disgust, realization. The truth was clawing its way through Kareem's fortress of lies. By the end of the day, Layla felt both hollowed out and fortified. She had survived the crossfire. She had bled on the stand and refused to break. As the bailiff dismissed the court, Adam rushed forward, slipping past Rana. He wrapped his arms around her waist. "Mama," he whispered, "you were so brave." Layla bent down, holding him close, tears wetting his hair. His small, solid presence anchored her, reminding her why she had endured the humiliation, the pain, the risk. The war was far from over, but in that moment, she felt a crack in Kareem's armor, and she vowed she would drive her truth through it, no matter what it cost. The next day in court, Layla braced herself. She had faced Vivian Cross's blade before, but now it gleamed sharper, hungrier. Vivian rose with deliberate calm, smoothing her jacket as if she were preparing for ritual sacrifice. Her eyes locked on Layla with quiet triumph. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, "what kind of mother endangers her child by wading into battles she cannot win? Ms. Haddad presents herself as a victim, but the truth is she is reckless. She courts danger, then hides behind her son's innocence as a shield." Layla's chest tightened. Her hands balled into fists beneath the table. Vivian continued, voice like silk wrapped around poison. She could have gone to the police. She could have sought help quietly. Instead, she sought headlines. She brought her son into this storm, by choice. The jury scribbled notes. Some frowned. Layla could feel the venom seeping into the room. That night, Adam curled against her on their worn sofa, his head resting in her lap as they watched an old cartoon on the flickering TV. He laughed at a silly scene, popcorn spilling from his fingers. Layla smoothed his hair, heart aching. "Are you happy, Habibi?" she whispered. He tilted his head. "When I'm with you, yes." Her throat tightened. The courtroom's accusations echoed, reckless, manipulative. Yet here was the truth. The softness of his laugh, the warmth of his small hand in hers. She kissed his forehead and forced a smile. "Then that's enough." The trial shifted into betrayal when the next witness was called. Layla's stomach dropped at the name. Nadine. A friend from her first years in New York, Nadine had once shared cramped apartments and late-night tears over immigration papers. Layla hadn't seen her in years. Nadine took the stand, her eyes sliding away from Layla's. Vivian's questions were smooth, rehearsed. "You knew Ms. Haddad personally, didn't you?" "Yes," Nadine admitted softly. "And during that time, did she ever express financial desperation?" "Yes." "Did she ever speak about wanting more for her son at any cost?" Nadine hesitated. Her lips trembled before she finally whispered, "Yes." The words landed like a knife. Layla's pulse roared in her ears. She wanted to shout, "Nadine, how could you?" But the courtroom protocol chained her silence. Vivian's final question sealed the betrayal. "So would you say Ms. Haddad is capable of exaggerating circumstances if it benefits her?" Nadine's eyes filled with shame, but she nodded. "Yes." When recess was called, Layla stumbled into the hallway, her breath ragged. Rana caught her shoulders. "Don't listen. Nadine is bought. I've seen this before. Kareem finds your weakness, twists it." Layla shook her head, tears stinging. "She was my friend. She knew Adam as a baby. She knew what we survived. And still," Rana pulled her close. "That's his power, but it won't last." The next day, the atmosphere shifted again. Marcus stood, his tone measured but laced with fire. "We've heard from the defense, but today you'll hear from voices long silenced." He gestured toward the witness stand. A woman walked slowly forward, her posture tense but resolute. Layla didn't recognize her. She looked younger than Layla, but her eyes were aged with shadows. She gave her name, her accent heavy. She had worked for one of Kareem's companies overseas. Her testimony was halting, raw. "He told me I would work in hospitality," she said, voice trembling. "Instead, I was locked in a room. Sold." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Kareem's face remained impassive, but Layla saw the flicker in his jaw. The woman continued, tears streaming. "I thought no one would ever believe me. Until I heard about Ms. Haddad. She turned toward Layla briefly, eyes glistening. Her courage gave me mine. Layla's breath caught. She pressed her palms against her lap, forcing back sobs. That evening at home, she tucked Adam into bed. He clutched his lion, blinking sleepily. "Did you win today?" he asked. Layla smiled faintly. "Not yet, but we're closer. Because of you?" "Because of us," she whispered. He yawned, drifting into dreams. Layla sat beside him in the dim glow of the nightlight, thinking of the woman who had stepped forward. For the first time, she felt the scales tipping, not just her against Kareem, but a chorus of voices rising. The following day, more women came. Not all could testify in person, but affidavits were read aloud, statements woven into the record. Each story echoed Layla's. Promises of opportunity turned into cages. The jury shifted uneasily with every account. Even Vivian's sharp tongue seemed to falter as the tide grew heavier. When court adjourned, Layla caught Julia in the corridor. The journalist's eyes shone. "Do you see? You opened the door. They're walking through it." Layla exhaled shakily. "But will it be enough?" Julia squeezed her hand. "Truth multiplies. That's its power." But Kareem wasn't finished. The next day, his defense pivoted back to Adam. Vivian's voice was low, calculated. "Ms. Haddad, you claim to act for your child. Yet you've dragged him into the public eye, exposed him to danger, risked his safety. Is that what a good mother does?" Layla's breath hitched. "I've protected him every way I can." Vivian's lips curved. "By putting him in the center of a criminal trial? By making him collateral in your vendetta?" The words sliced deep. Layla looked toward the gallery. Adam sat between Rana and Julia, swinging his legs, oblivious to the daggers being thrown at his mother. Her voice steadied, anchored by his presence. "I did not bring Adam into this storm. The storm came for us, and I will fight it, not just for him, but for every child who deserves a future without men like Kareem." Silence gripped the room. By the time court adjourned, Layla felt drained, her body heavy with exhaustion. But when Adam slipped his small hand into hers, pride surged through her exhaustion like fire through ash. She had been humiliated, betrayed, dragged through doubt. But she had also become something more than a victim. She had become a beacon. And in the quiet of her apartment that night, listening to Adam breathe, she understood. Motherhood wasn't her weakness. It was her weapon. The jury had been out for 3 days. 3 days of restless nights of Adam curled beside her whispering, "When will it be over, Mama?" 3 days of staring at the ceiling, imagining both outcomes, Kareem walking free or Kareem finally caged. Now she sat in the courtroom, her hands trembling in her lap. The gallery was packed, journalists scribbling notes, cameras flashing in the hall, strangers leaning forward as though they too carried her scars. Kareem entered last, as always. Perfectly pressed suit, calm stride, the faintest smile at the corner of his lips. His confidence was armor, polished and unbreakable. Marcus leaned toward her. "Whatever happens, remember, we've already shifted the world. He'll never be untouchable again." Layla nodded, though her throat was too tight for words. The judge called order. The jury filed in, faces grave, unreadable. The foreperson rose, holding the paper that contained everything Layla had fought for. "In the case of the people versus Kareem Al-Farouk, we, the jury, find the defendant." The air thinned. Layla gripped the edge of the table, guilty on counts of fraud, embezzlement, and financial conspiracy. A rush of sound erupted, gasps, whispers. The scratching of pens, Layla's chest tightened. Guilty. They had him, but the foreperson continued. Not guilty on charges of human trafficking and coercion. The room seemed to tilt. Her ears rang. Not guilty. Kareem's smile widened, a shadow of triumph passing over his face. Marcus slammed his file shut, jaw clenched. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. The judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court." Layla sat frozen, the words echoing in her skull. "Not guilty. Not guilty." She turned toward the gallery. Adam's wide eyes met hers. He didn't understand the nuances, the legal distinctions. He just wanted to know if the monster was stopped. She forced herself to nod at him as if to say, "Yes, we're safe," even if her heart knew it was only half true. When the judge dismissed the jury, chaos erupted. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. "Kareem, how do you respond to the verdict?" "Layla, do you feel justice was served? Do you regret coming forward?" Marcus blocked them with his arm. guiding her through the crush. But Kareem was already surrounded by his lawyers, Vivian whispering in his ear, his posture regal as if he had orchestrated even this outcome. As Layla passed, their eyes locked. He mouthed almost tenderly, "You lost." Her breath caught, but then something shifted inside her. She straightened, met his gaze with steady fire, and whispered back, "I survived." For the first time, his smile faltered. Outside, microphones thrust toward her face, questions flying. Layla raised a trembling hand, silencing them. "I came here not for money, not for headlines, but for truth," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. "The jury has spoken. But I want everyone listening to understand. Justice is not finished. It lives in every survivor who dares to speak, in every silence that turns into testimony. I cannot erase what was done to me or to others, but I can stand here alive, unbroken, and that is something no verdict can take away." Her voice cracked, but the words hung in the air, heavier than the camera's clicks. That night, back home, Layla sat by Adam's bedside. He studied her face with solemn curiosity. "Did we win?" he asked. She hesitated. "Partly," he frowned. "But he won too?" Her chest ached. He escaped some of what he deserved. But he can't escape the truth anymore, and neither can the world. Adam thought for a long moment. Then he whispered, "You were braver than anyone, Mama." Tears welled. She kissed his forehead, her whisper fierce. "I did it for you." Later, alone in the kitchen, Layla poured herself tea with shaking hands. The city roared outside her window, indifferent. She thought of her father, of Damascus, of Nadine's betrayal, of every woman who had stepped forward. Justice was imperfect. It had left wounds open, allowed Kareem to walk with his arrogance intact. But she had faced him, spoken her truth, survived, and survival, she realized, was its own form of victory. The courthouse doors swung open, spilling Layla into the blaze of afternoon light. For a moment she stopped, overwhelmed. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, the crowd surged like a restless tide. But she felt only the small, steady weight of Adam's hand in hers. His fingers curled around hers with the certainty of a boy who trusted his mother to lead him through any storm. And this time she believed she could. They descended the marble steps together. The press surged forward, microphones angled like weapons. "Layla, do you feel vindicated? Was justice served? Do you have a message for other survivors?" She met the sea of voices and chose silence, not because she was afraid, but because she no longer needed their validation. She turned instead to Adam, bending low so her voice reached only him. "Come, Habibi, let's go home." It was the first time in years she had called him that in public. The Arabic rolled off her tongue without hesitation, rich and certain. Adam's eyes widened, then softened into a smile. The car ride home was quiet. The city blurred past, glass and steel giving way to the smaller buildings of their neighborhood. Layla rested her head back, listening to Adam hum to himself, a tune he must have picked up from cartoons or the schoolyard. For the first time in months, her chest didn't ache with dread. Instead, she felt something unfamiliar, almost frightening in its lightness. Relief. Not complete. Never complete. But enough. That night, she and Adam sat on their apartment's small balcony, the city's neon glow painting their faces. She poured them tea, sweet for him, strong for her. The scent of mint rose between them, carrying her back across oceans and years. "Mama," Adam said, legs swinging, "can you tell me about Syria again? The real stories, not just the ones you think I can handle." Her throat tightened. For so long she had guarded her words, locking them away behind silence and half-truths. Arabic itself had become dangerous, each syllable tied to memories she could not bear to relive. But tonight, she felt the lock give way. She took a long breath. Then, in clear, unbroken Arabic, she began. She told him of Damascus before the war, the narrow streets alive with the smell of jasmine and fresh bread, the call to prayer rising and falling like the heartbeat of the city. She told him about his grandfather, a man of fierce dignity who believed education was a weapon stronger than any gun. She told him about the betrayal, the night their world shattered, and the desperate journey that brought her here. Her voice broke at times, but she did not stop. The words flowed, uncoiling years of silence, weaving together grief and pride. Adam listened intently, his eyes reflecting the city lights. "So that's why you never wanted to speak Arabic with me," he said softly. "Yes," Layla whispered. "It hurt too much. But it is yours, Adam, ours. I want you to know it, to carry it, to never be ashamed." He reached for her hand, squeezing. "Then teach me." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but her smile held steady. "I will. Every word." The next week, Layla returned to the restaurant, not to work, but to collect her things. The tables gleamed as always, crystal catching the light, polished forks laid in perfect symmetry. But it felt different now. When she walked past table 12, the place Kareem had first unleashed his fury, her chest did not tighten. Instead, she felt a surge of defiance. That night had broken something, yes, but it had also begun her reclamation. "Goodbye," she murmured to the empty room. Not to the restaurant itself, but to the version of herself who had once bowed her head in silence. Opportunities began to arrive, uninvited, but undeniable. A journalist requested an interview. A women's shelter asked her to speak. At first she hesitated, then she remembered the women who had testified, the voices that had risen after hers. She agreed. Her first public appearance was small, a circle of women in a community center basement. She told them her story, voice trembling but clear. Some wept. Some nodded silently, their own truths pressing against their throats. Afterward, one woman clutched her hand. "You gave me courage," she said. Layla walked home that night with Adam skipping at her side, the words echoing in her chest like a hymn. One evening, weeks later, she and Adam returned to the balcony with their tea. He practiced Arabic words between sips, proud of each new syllable. "Lion is Asad, right?" he asked, holding up his stuffed animal. "Yes," she laughed. "Asad." He grinned, repeating it until it rolled smoothly off his tongue. Layla leaned back, letting the night breeze wash over her. Her scars remained, visible and hidden, but they no longer defined her. She was not just a waitress, not just a survivor, not just a victim of betrayal and war. She was a mother, a storyteller, a woman fluent not only in her language but in her own power. Far below, the city pulsed on, indifferent. Somewhere, other voices still lay silenced, trapped in fear or shame. Layla knew she could not speak for them all, but she had spoken for herself. And in the quiet, with Adam repeating words in Arabic beside her, she whispered into the night, "How many more voices are waiting to be heard?" No answer came, only the hum of traffic and the rustle of leaves. But she knew the silence would not last forever, not anymore.